The wisdom of non-force. Let me ask you something simple, yet powerful. Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to control everything, the more out of control life seems to become? You push, you plan, you stress, you overthink, and still, things fall apart. Deadlines slip, people change, outcomes escape your grip. It feels like the more force you apply, the more resistance life pushes back with. But what if that resistance was a message? According to Stoic wisdom, life isn't meant to be forced. It's meant to be lived in alignment with nature, with reality, with the present moment. See, the Stoics didn't preach passivity, but they did teach surrender, not as a form of giving up, but as a way of stepping into true power. They believed that inner peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from letting go of what was never yours to control in the first place. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that's what this video is about. We're not here to give you another checklist on how to crush life or dominate the world. We're here to do something much more radical, something much more meaningful. We're going to show you how not forcing life can actually give you more freedom, more clarity, and more power than chasing ever will. Because when you stop forcing, you start flowing. And in that flow, you don't lose yourself. You return to yourself. So if you're tired of burnout, if you're done white-knuckling your way through uncertainty, if you're ready to stop fighting the current and finally learn how to float, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll explore 10 Stoic lessons that will help you cultivate calm, drop unnecessary struggle, and move through life with a quiet kind of power. Each principle is simple, but deeply transformative. Each one invites you to do less, but become more. So take a deep breath. Let the tension go for just a moment, and join me on this path, not of control, but of conscious alignment. Because the truth is, life doesn't need to be forced. It just needs to be understood. Are you ready? Let's begin. Lesson 1. Don't chase, attract. Let's start with a quiet truth. The more you chase something, the faster it runs from you. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself anxiously pursuing someone's attention, or working relentlessly just to prove your worth, only to feel more invisible, more exhausted? We've been taught to hustle, to grind, to chase after everything, love, success, approval, as if we're constantly one step behind. But here's the shift. What if the key to peace isn't in chasing, but in becoming? Stoic philosophy invites us to flip the script. Instead of begging life to give you what you want, build yourself into someone who naturally attracts the things you need. This is not about arrogance. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about realizing that when you're grounded in purpose, aligned with your values, and consistent with your actions, the right people and opportunities start finding you. They feel your presence because your energy isn't scattered. You're not yelling for attention. You're creating gravity. That's what makes you powerful. The Stoics believed that chasing external outcomes leads to inner chaos. They taught that virtue, your character, your habits, your mindset, is the true source of strength. And when you live with inner strength, you stop chasing, you start attracting. Let me give you a visual. Imagine two people walking into a room. One is anxious, looking around for someone to notice them, adjusting their clothes, checking their phone. The other walks in calmly, not trying to impress, not looking for approval, just fully present in who they are. Who do people naturally notice? Who feels magnetic? It's always a second person, because their energy says, "I'm not here to convince you. I'm here because I know who I am." That's the shift Stoicism teaches us. You don't need to chase people. You need to chase your principles. Don't hustle for validation. Hustle for growth. Stop chasing outcomes. Start mastering your input, your discipline, your thoughts, your habits. Because when you do that, the rest tends to follow. Success, it notices. Relationships, they respect it. Life, it aligns. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, never chased popularity. He didn't write his meditations for an audience. He wrote them to remind himself how to live rightly, humbly, and with integrity. And yet today, over 2,000 years later, we're still drawn to his words. Why? Because truth, lived quietly, speaks louder than noise ever could. So if you've been chasing, stop. Not because you failed, but because there's a better way. Turn inward. Build your routines. Strengthen your values. Protect your energy. Become the kind of person success wants to be around. Attraction isn't magic. It's alignment. And once you stop running after the wrong things, you create space for the right things to arrive. Lesson 2, let go of control. Here's something that sounds simple, but feels incredibly hard. Let go of control. I know it's easier said than done. Most of us live with this silent pressure to hold everything together. We think if we plan more, stress more, or push harder, we'll finally get life to cooperate. But tell me honestly, has it ever worked out exactly the way you plan? Probably not, because life is unpredictable, people are complex, outcomes are uncertain, and no matter how much effort you put in, you simply can't control everything. But here's the powerful truth. You don't have to. You don't have to micromanage life to live well. The Stoics taught us that real freedom comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering our response to it. Epictetus said it best. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. That's the line. What's up to you? Your attitude, your choices, your values, your ability to pause, reflect, and act with wisdom. What's not up to you? Almost everything else. And the moment you stop fighting that reality, you stop suffering. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're caught in traffic, running late for something important. You could tense up, curse at the cars, blame the universe, or you could breathe, accept that you're here, and use the time to think, reflect, maybe listen to something uplifting. Same situation, very different experience. Because in that moment, your power wasn't in the traffic, it was in your response. And this applies to more than traffic. It applies to relationships, setbacks, uncertainty, even success. When someone betrays your trust, you can't control their actions, but you can choose not to become bitter. When a dream doesn't go as planned, you can't rewind time, but you can choose how you rise from it. This is where real strength lives, not in domination, but in surrender, not in passive resignation, but in empowered acceptance. Because letting go of control isn't giving up. It's letting go of the illusion that control was ever yours to begin with. You still show up. You still work hard. But you don't grip life so tightly that you strangle your peace. You hold things with open hands, not clenched fists. You do your part, and then you release the rest. And that space between action and surrender is where serenity is born. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, faced wars, plagues, and political chaos. But in his journals, he constantly reminded himself to focus only on what he could control. His thoughts, his virtues, his ability to respond with wisdom, not panic. He couldn't control the empire, but he could control himself. And that's what made him powerful. So today, if you're tired of trying to control everything, stop, not because you're weak, but because there's a better way. Ask yourself, What's one thing you're stressing over right now that's actually out of your hands? Now breathe, release it, refocus on your mindset, your habits, your integrity. That's your realm. That's your freedom. And when you begin living from that place, life has a strange way of flowing more smoothly. Not because it got easier, but because you got clearer. If this speaks to you, take it as a quiet reminder. You don't need to control the world. You just need to master how you move through it. Let go and let life unfold with grace. 3. Accept what is. Love. What life brings. Let me ask you something. How much of your stress comes from fighting reality? We don't often realize it, but so much of our inner turmoil comes not from what happens, but from our resistance to it. We say things like, this shouldn't have happened, or why me? But here's a quiet truth the Stoics lived by. Peace doesn't begin with control, it begins with acceptance. They had a powerful phrase for this. Amor fati, love of fate. It doesn't mean pretending that everything is perfect. It means choosing to say yes to life, even when it doesn't go your way. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe a relationship ended. Maybe plans completely fell apart. You could fight it, blame the world, and try to force things back into place. Or you could pause, breathe, and accept what is. Not because it's easy, but because it's freeing. See, acceptance doesn't make you passive. It makes you present. When you stop wrestling with what you wish things were, you finally start working with what they are. And from there, real progress begins. Imagine walking through a storm. If you curse the wind, you'll exhaust yourself. But if you lean into it, steady your steps, and keep moving, you'll find your rhythm. That's what Stoicism teaches us, to move with life, not against it. So ask yourself, what in your life are you resisting right now? What would shift if, just for today, you chose to accept it, not as punishment, but as part of your path? You don't have to love every moment, but you can love the journey. That's the heart of Stoic peace. It's not found in perfect conditions. It's found in the quiet strength to say, this is where I am, and I'll meet life here as I am. If this resonates with you, stay with me, because the next lesson will take you deeper. 4. Trust the timing. Let life unfold at its own pace. Let me tell you something that's hard to swallow in a fast-paced world. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it never will. We live in a culture obsessed with urgency. If success doesn't come fast, we feel behind. If relationships don't move quickly, we question them. If change takes time, we assume we're failing. But here's what the Stoics remind us. Life unfolds in seasons, not sprints. There's a rhythm to the universe, just like there's a rhythm to healing, to growth, to becoming. You don't rush spring after winter. You don't force the fruit to ripen before it's time. So why do we pressure ourselves to bloom when the soil still needs tending? When things are delayed, it's easy to spiral into frustration. But delay isn't always denial. Sometimes it's protection, sometimes it's preparation, and sometimes it's simply the universe saying, not yet, but soon. Seneca said, time discovers truth. The right answers, the right people, the right opportunities. They often come when we've done the quiet inner work and then let go of the need to control when they appear. Think about a time in your life when something didn't work out and you were heartbroken. But later you realized, thank goodness it didn't. Something better came, or you became better. So instead of asking, why is it taking so long? What if you asked, what is this season trying to teach me? Maybe this chapter isn't about moving forward. Maybe it's about growing deeper roots. Remember, trusting the timing isn't passive, it's powerful. It means you're no longer controlled by fear or urgency, but guided by trust, patience, and quiet strength. If this message landed somewhere in your heart, stay with me. The next lesson might be the one you didn't know you needed. 5. Flow like water, the Stoic art of adaptability. Let me ask you something. When life doesn't go as planned, how do you respond? Do you tighten up? Push harder? Try to bend the world to your will? Or do you breathe and adapt? The Stoics, and later thinkers like Bruce Lee, pointed to one of the most powerful metaphors for inner peace and resilience: water. Quiet, calm, yet absolutely unstoppable. Water doesn't resist. It doesn't fight the rock in its path. It flows around it. And with enough time, it shapes mountains, carves valleys, and wears down even the hardest stone. That's not weakness. That's timeless strength. Bruce Lee famously said, "Be formless, shapeless, like water." And while he was speaking from a martial arts perspective, his message echoes Stoic wisdom. When we're rigid, we break. But when we stay fluid, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we endure. Think about it. Life throws curveballs. The job you thought was secure suddenly disappears. The relationship you gave everything to ends without warning. Your plans get delayed, detoured, or destroyed. What then? You can either collapse into frustration or flow. Adaptability isn't about giving up. It's about moving with purpose through change. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic, didn't sit in a palace avoiding problems. He faced wars, plagues, betrayal, and still practiced mental fluidity. He reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When we adopt this mindset, obstacles become invitations. Delays become directions. Setbacks become setups for something greater. But it takes practice. Start small. When your day doesn't go as planned, instead of saying, "This ruins everything," ask, "How can I move through this calmly, like water?" When someone disappoints you, instead of hardening into bitterness, let go. Flow forward. Don't let their energy dictate your direction. Adaptability also means letting go of ego. Water doesn't need credit. It doesn't shout. It simply moves, quiet, steady, effective. And that's a form of power many overlook. Stoicism teaches us that peace doesn't come from controlling every outcome. It comes from controlling your internal response. Just like water doesn't choose the terrain, we don't always choose our circumstances, but we can choose how we move through them. So here's a quiet challenge for you. The next time life pushes back, don't resist. Flow. Find your rhythm in the chaos. Trust your flexibility more than your force. Let go of needing everything to go your way, and discover that your true way might be something deeper, wiser, and more aligned than you ever imagined. If this message finds you at a time of change, uncertainty, or transition, good. That means it's exactly what your soul is ready for. Stay with me. The next lesson builds on this idea of inner flexibility, and it might just shift how you see everything. 6. Focus on inner alignment. Live what you believe. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on something simple but powerful. When was the last time your actions truly matched your values? Not what was trending, not what others expected, but what you, deep down, believe is right. See, we live in a world that's constantly pulling us in 1,000 directions. Algorithms tell us what's important. Trends tell us what to chase. People tell us who to be. And before we know it, we're living a life that's out of sync, not just with ourselves, but with our soul. That's where inner alignment comes in. and it's one of the quiet superpowers the Stoics mastered. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion or pretending nothing bothers you. It's about living in harmony with your values, about making decisions that reflect who you are, not who you're trying to impress. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic minds, wrote to himself every night not to show off, but to realign. He asked, "Are my actions in line with what I believe? Or am I slipping into habit, ego, or fear?" That's a question worth asking ourselves every single day, because here's what happens when we don't. We start saying yes when we mean no. We follow the crowd, not our conscience. We chase success that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. And that tension, the gap between what we do and what we believe, is where anxiety lives. But when you begin to close that gap, when your words match your heart, when your choices reflect your principles, when you stop explaining yourself and just live the truth quietly, that's when peace walks in. Inner alignment doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means you stop betraying yourself. And in a world full of noise, that's a rare kind of freedom. Here's the beautiful part. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to start. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need one small decision today to act in line with who you are. Maybe it's speaking up with honesty, or walking away from something that no longer fits, or choosing rest instead of proving your worth through busyness. Each moment becomes a vote for your future self. And when those moments stack up day after day, you start to feel grounded, calm, and clear, even when the world isn't. You'll find that external pressure loses its grip when your inner compass is strong. So here's a question to carry with you today. What would it look like if you stopped chasing approval and started aligning with your deepest truth? If that question sits heavy in your chest, that's good. That's not doubt. That's a signal, a quiet nudge back to yourself. Because in the end, the most magnetic people aren't the loudest. They're the most aligned. And that kind of energy, it's unshakable. If this resonates with you, stay with me, because the next lesson will take this even deeper. Let's keep walking, calm, honest, and in alignment. 7. Silence is power. Master the art of saying less. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the presence of someone who said nothing at all? No grand entrance, no loud words, just calm, grounded energy. That's not coincidence. That's silent power. In a world obsessed with noise, where everyone's talking, posting, proving, choosing silence is revolutionary. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that wisdom doesn't need a microphone. It speaks through restraint, through clarity, through presence. You don't need to explain everything you believe. You don't have to justify your path to people who don't understand it. In fact, the more you feel compelled to explain yourself, the more you give away your power. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's exactly what silent strength looks like. Here's a truth that changed the way I move through life. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. It's often the one who listens the most, speaks the least, and thinks deeply before responding. That kind of quiet discipline builds something priceless: mystery. In silence, people start to wonder, not because you're hiding something, but because you're no longer handing them everything. When you stop broadcasting your every move, you give your energy a chance to grow. You give your confidence time to solidify. You give your life room to breathe without the pressure of needing applause or validation. Think about it. How often do we talk just to fill space, to seek approval, to be heard even when we haven't yet heard ourselves? But when you slow down, when you learn to speak less and observe more, something shifts. You begin to read the room better. You hear what's not being said. You notice the energy behind people's words. And more importantly, you start to notice yourself. Silence is not weakness. It's precision. It's power with purpose. So next time you feel the urge to overshare, to defend yourself, to prove your worth, pause, ask yourself, is this coming from strength or from fear? Because sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Let your actions speak. Let your energy announce who you are. Let your silence protect your peace and sharpen your presence. Because when your silence is rooted in self-awareness, not avoidance, it becomes a magnetic force. People will lean in closer, not because you shouted, but because your stillness spoke to something in them. If this resonates with you, take a breath and let it sink in. Not everything needs to be said. Not every truth needs to be told to everyone. Speak less, observe more, and let your calm become your signature. And if you're still with me, stay tuned, because in the next lesson, we'll explore how to stop forcing life and start flowing with its natural rhythm. 8. Surrender doesn't mean weakness. The power of letting go gracefully. Here's a tough question for you. What comes to mind when you hear the word surrender? For many of us, it feels like defeat, like giving up, like letting life roll over us while we just sit back and take it. But what if that's not what surrender really is? What if surrender, in its truest form, is actually one of the most courageous choices you can make? The Stoics believed in this kind of quiet power. They didn't equate surrender with weakness. They saw it as a path to peace, a sign of deep wisdom, not retreat. You see, letting go doesn't mean giving up your goals, your standards, or your sense of direction. It means releasing your need to control every single detail, every outcome, every person. It's choosing to walk through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. Because here's the truth. The tighter you grip something that isn't meant for you, the more it hurts. Maybe you've experienced this yourself. You fight to hold on to a relationship that's clearly outgrown its purpose. You keep pushing a plan that no longer aligns with who you are. Or maybe you keep replaying a decision, trying to rewrite it in your head, long after it's done. And slowly that weight begins to wear you down. But when you surrender, not out of fear but out of clarity, something beautiful happens. You begin to breathe again. You create space for what's actually meant to find you. You stop rowing upstream and let the current carry you, not aimlessly, but with intention. Let's be clear, surrender isn't passive. It's not whatever happens, happens. Number, it's about letting life move while you stay anchored in purpose. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's the Stoic idea of amor fati, loving your fate, not resisting it. It means welcoming each moment, not just the ones you plan for. Think of a tree in the wind. It doesn't resist every gust. It bends, it sways, but it remains rooted. That's the kind of strength we're talking about here. So the next time life throws you a curveball, before you panic, before you try to wrestle it into place, pause. Ask yourself, is this really something I need to control or something I need to release? Because sometimes real power is walking away without bitterness. Sometimes it's choosing peace over pride. And sometimes it's simply trusting that what's unfolding is bigger than what you can currently see. Letting go isn't the end of the road. It's the start of a different one that may surprise you, heal you, and lead you closer to what truly matters. So if you're struggling right now, if something feels stuck, heavy, or forced, Maybe the answer isn't to try harder. Maybe it's to let go, gently, intentionally. Let life unfold without needing to grip the steering wheel so tightly. You'll still guide your path, but you'll no longer be at war with it. And if this message landed in the right moment for you, stay with us, because the next lesson will show you how to protect your energy and focus on what you can control, even when everything else feels uncertain. Until then, breathe deep, trust the process, and remember, surrender isn't giving up, it's waking up. 9. Detach from outcomes. The quiet power of non-attachment. Let me ask you something personal. How often do you measure the value of what you do? By the result it brings. You put in the effort, show up consistently, and naturally, your mind starts chasing the reward, the recognition, the outcome, the success. But what happens when things don't go as planned? Disappointment, frustration, sometimes even self-doubt. And that's where Stoicism offers a gentle, yet powerful reminder. Your peace should not depend on the result. It should rest in your effort. The Stoics taught us that true freedom begins the moment we release our attachment to outcomes. That doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we work less or lower our standards. It means we pour ourselves into the process with everything we've got, and then we let go. Why? Because the outcome is never fully in our control. Life has too many variables: timing, other people's actions, randomness. All of it plays a role. And if our happiness is tied to a specific result, we're constantly handing our peace over to forces we cannot command. Imagine a gardener planting seeds. They water the soil, make sure there's sunlight, remove the weeds, but they can't force the flower to bloom. All they can do is create the best conditions and trust the rest to nature. You are the gardener of your life. Your job is to show up, tend to your work, live with integrity, and then release the obsessive grip on how it has to turn out. Because when we attach too tightly, suffering follows. You train hard for a race and lose. You give your best to a relationship and it still ends. You launch a project with passion and it flops. If you judge yourself solely by those outcomes, you'll miss the quiet victory, the person you became through the effort, the inner discipline you strengthened, the clarity you gained. That's what endures even when the result doesn't. Detachment isn't apathy, it's wisdom. It allows you to keep moving forward without being paralyzed by fear or disappointment. It gives you the ability to say, I did my part. I gave it meaning. Now I trust life to do the rest. Epictetus said, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. That's not a passive attitude. It's the deepest kind of emotional strength. Because when you're not ruled by outcomes, you become unshakable. So if you're in a season right now where the results aren't showing, where your effort feels unseen or unrewarded, this is your invitation to shift your lens. Look not at what you've received, but at who you've become. Ask yourself, did I give this my honest effort? Did I stay true to my values? Did I learn something valuable? If the answer is yes, you didn't fail. You grew. And that growth will carry you forward far longer than any short-term win ever could. So work hard, show up with heart, pour your soul into what matters. But at the end of the day, let go. Let go of needing it to go perfectly. Let go of needing the approval. Let go of needing to win at all costs. Because your worth isn't proven by outcomes. It's revealed in the way you walk your path. And if this message resonates with where you are right now, you're not alone. You're exactly where you need to be. Trust the process, not the scoreboard. 10. Stillness leads to clarity. Let me ask you something you may not hear often. When was the last time you were truly still? I don't mean just sitting down or taking a break. I mean really still. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. No scrolling, no rushing, no fixing. Just you and silence. In today's world, silence has become rare. Stillness feels like a luxury we can't afford. We're constantly on, constantly connected, and constantly reacting. But here's the paradox. The more noise we allow in, the less clarity we have. And without clarity, we can't think clearly, choose wisely, or live peacefully. This is why the Stoics, 2,000 years ago, already knew something most of us are just beginning to remember. Stillness is not emptiness. It's power. It's not about doing nothing. It's about allowing space for everything essential to rise. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and one of the greatest Stoic minds, wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Let that sink in. He ruled an empire, faced wars, betrayals, and plagues. Yet he returned to his journal, to his breath, to the inner sanctuary of stillness, not as an escape, but as a return to what matters. Because in stillness, something incredible happens. We begin to hear ourselves again. The clutter of the world starts to fade. The voices telling you what you should be, do, or chase begin to quiet. And what's left? Your own wisdom, your own compass. And when you can hear that, your next step becomes clear. Let me give you a personal example. There was a time I kept forcing every door open, trying to fix, build, push, hustle my way through everything. Every decision felt urgent. Every failure felt personal. And every success felt hollow, like I was still running. Until one day, out of exhaustion, I paused. Not to quit, but to be still. I turned off the noise. I sat in nature. I journaled, not to write something brilliant, but just to hear myself think. And in that silence, I realized something painfully simple. I'd been chasing clarity through speed, when what I needed was stillness. Since then, I've made it a daily practice, no matter how busy the day, to return to stillness. Whether it's 5 minutes of deep breathing, a short walk without my phone, or sitting with a cup of tea and no agenda. And almost every time I find clarity waiting there, quiet but strong. So here's what I'll leave you with today. You don't need another hack. You don't need another voice shouting advice. You don't need to force the answers. You just need space. Space to return to yourself. Space to listen instead of react. Space to breathe. Because from that space, clarity emerges every single time. The Stoics weren't emotionless statues. They were deeply alive, but they understood that the noise of life can drown out the truth within us if we never pause to listen. So let stillness be your strength. Let it be your daily retreat. And when life gets loud, don't just push harder, be still, and trust what rises from the quiet. The path of inner peace. Let me leave you with this truth. The world tells us to fight, to hustle, to conquer every inch of our lives. But the Stoics, they teach us something radically different. That real power, lasting, unshakable power, doesn't come from force, it comes from flow. It's easy to think that surrender means weakness, that letting go means giving up. But that's not what Stoicism teaches us. Surrender, in its highest form, is the decision to stop fighting against what is and to start working with it. We often confuse chaos for momentum, struggle for strength. But strength, my friend, is being able to pause when everything in you wants to push. It's saying, I trust the process, even when the outcome is unclear. It's choosing clarity over control, purpose over panic. These 10 Stoic lessons weren't meant to make you passive. Far from it. They're here to help you become active, but in a way that's deliberate, rooted, and conscious. This isn't about giving up on life. It's about showing up differently, still, grounded, unmoved by the storms. So let's take one more moment and reflect. Instead of chasing, what if you simply became magnetic, attracting what's meant for you by becoming who you're meant to be? Instead of controlling everything, what if you focused on controlling your response to everything? Instead of resisting reality, what if you practice amor fati, loving your fate as it is? What if you could move through life like water, adaptable but purposeful? And what if, just for today, you stopped needing the answers right now and trusted the timing instead? This is the invitation Stoicism gives us, to step back from the noise, to breathe, to align our lives with our values, not with pressure, to speak less, observe more, and act with quiet strength. True peace doesn't scream, it doesn't rush, it doesn't grasp, it flows, it knows, and it waits for those willing to slow down enough to hear it. So wherever you are in your life right now, overwhelmed, uncertain, or maybe just seeking something more, take this with you. You don't need to force the path. You are the path. And the more you align with nature, with wisdom, with your truest self, the more life begins to meet you halfway. Because peace was never something to chase. It was something to remember. Thank you for watching this far, for choosing to reflect instead of react. If this message landed with you, don't let it end here. Share it, rewatch it, live it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Because this is more than a video. It's a movement toward deeper living, wiser thinking, and stronger inner peace. Until next time, don't force, flow.